It all started on a stormy Thursday night, the kind that paints the sky in lightning and forces even the bravest hearts to stay inside. But for Clara Hayes, the youngest female CEO of a billion-dollar tech firm, the storm outside was nothing compared to the one raging inside her heart. She sat quietly in the back seat of her luxury car, staring out the window at the rain, replaying her board members' words in her mind. "You're too cold, too distant. People don't trust you." A cold? Distant? Maybe they were right. Clara had built her empire by locking her emotions away. After all, empathy didn't close deals. But lately, she'd begun to wonder if all that success had cost her something deeper, something human. That's when fate, or maybe irony, stepped in. Her assistant had booked her an Airbnb far from the city, a quiet home to rest and reset before an upcoming investor retreat. What Clara didn't know was that the cozy, old-fashioned home wasn't owned by a business host. It was run by a single dad named Ethan Cole and his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. And by the time the weekend was over, Clara Hayes's entire definition of success would shatter. When Clara arrived, drenched from the rain and exhausted, Ethan opened the door with a towel in one hand and the kind of smile that made people instantly feel safe. He wasn't polished or charming in the corporate way. He was just real. His hands were rough, his shirt sleeves rolled, his eyes kind. "Welcome, ma'am," he said softly. "Sorry about the weather. Let me take your coat." The way he spoke, humble, grounded, unnerved her. She wasn't used to kindness that didn't have an agenda. Inside, the small house smelled like cinnamon and old wood. On the couch, a tiny girl with big brown eyes peeked shyly from behind a stuffed bear. "Say hi, Lily," Ethan encouraged. The girl whispered, then looked at Clara's expensive shoes. "You look like a movie star." Clara's lips twitched, a smile brief and unfamiliar. She tried to keep her distance that night, but over dinner, she found herself listening to Ethan talk about his life. How his wife had passed away 3 years ago, how he'd given up his engineering job to raise Lily, and how he ran this small Airbnb just to make ends meet. "You must think I'm a failure," he said with a quiet laugh, staring into his coffee. For a moment, Clara didn't know what to say. Something in his tone hit her harder than any corporate accusation ever had. The next morning, she woke early to prepare for a video call with her board. She expected silence downstairs. But instead, she heard music, laughter, and the sound of pancakes sizzling. Through the half-open door, she saw Ethan dancing with Lily, a spatula in one hand, her tiny feet on his shoes. It was the simplest, most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. And for the first time in years, Clara's chest ached for something money couldn't buy. Later that afternoon, after Lily ran off to play, Ethan found Clara sitting by the window. "You don't look like someone who knows how to rest," he said gently. She laughed lightly. "I don't. Rest feels like failure." He nodded. "Then maybe you've been winning the wrong battles." His words echoed long after he left the room. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, thoughts spinning, her heart strangely restless. And that's when a reckless idea came to her, a test. If she wanted to know who this man really was, if his kindness was genuine or just another mask like the ones she wore in boardrooms, she'd find out. So, the next morning, Clara decided to pretend to sleep. She lay still on the couch, eyes closed, breathing slow, as Ethan entered the room to clean up breakfast dishes. She waited for him to slip up, for him to mutter something about her behind her back, to act differently when she wasn't the CEO. But what happened instead made her freeze. Ethan stopped near her, adjusted the blanket over her shoulder, and whispered so quietly she barely caught it. "You must be so tired, miss. I hope you find whatever peace you're looking for." Then she heard the faint sound of him turning away. But before he left, he took something out of his pocket and gently placed it on the table beside her, an old, worn photograph. It was of him, his late wife, and Lily as a baby. Behind it, a note. Don't lose yourself trying to be what others expect. The world needs hearts, not just leaders. Clara's eyes flew open. No one had ever spoken to her that way. No one had seen her that deeply. The following days felt like a blur. Clara found herself helping Lily bake cookies, listening to Ethan play guitar on the porch, even laughing at silly jokes she never would have entertained in her office life. She didn't realize how much she'd been starving for something so simple: connection. But on the last night, as she prepared to leave, Lily ran to her with a handmade card. "It's for you," the little girl said proudly. Inside was a crayon drawing of 3 people: Lily, Ethan, and Clara, holding hands under a rainbow. "Daddy said you're lonely. But you don't have to be." Clara felt her throat tighten. She looked up at Ethan, who simply smiled and said, "You've got a good heart, Clara. Don't let the world convince you otherwise." When she returned to the city, something had changed. Her board members noticed it first. She started listening more, smiling more, treating her team like people, not machines. And when a young intern made a mistake that would have once triggered her wrath, she simply said, "Everyone's fighting their own battle. Let's help her fix it." That small moment went viral on social media. A clip of the cold CEO showing heart. But the truth was, it wasn't about image anymore. It was about healing. Weeks later, Clara drove back to Ethan's house. Not as a CEO, not as a guest, but as a woman who had finally found what she'd been missing. When he opened the door, surprise and warmth lit his eyes. "I told you," he said softly. "You just needed to rest." She smiled through tears. "No, Ethan, I needed to feel." And when Lily ran into her arms shouting, "You came back," Clara finally realized the truth she'd been chasing all her life. The greatest success isn't measured in profit or power. It's measured in the love you give and the hearts you heal along the way.